When my phone finally vibrated, the responses cut deeper than the surgeon's scalpel had. "We're too busy today. Just call an Uber," wrote Diana, my daughter-in-law of 15 years, the woman whose children I had raised while she climbed the corporate ladder at Meridian Pharmaceuticals. Then my son, Philip, my only child. "Why don't you ever plan anything in advance, Mom?" I felt something crack inside me. Not my recently repaired heart, but something far more vital. 23 days ago, I'd kissed my grandchildren goodbye before flying to Cleveland for experimental surgery, telling everyone it was just a minor procedure to spare them worry. I'd faced the possibility of death alone in a strange city, signed waivers acknowledging the risks, and woken up in blinding pain with no family member's hand to hold. And now, I couldn't even get a ride home from the airport. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I thought about telling them the truth, about the titanium device now keeping my heart chambers from collapsing, about the terror of nearly bleeding out on the operating table. Instead, I simply typed, "Okay?" That single word, deceptively cheerful with its exclamation mark, concealed a decision forming within me. For 67 years, I had been the supporter, the helper, the one who set aside her own needs. Widowed at 49, I'd poured everything into supporting Philip through law school, babysitting my grandchildren 4 days a week, and even contributing $80,000 toward the down payment on their suburban McMansion. My reward? An Uber suggestion and a reprimand. With hands steadier than they'd been moments before, I opened another text thread, one with Dr. E. Harrison Wells, the renowned cardiologist who had initially consulted on my case. We developed an unexpected friendship during those preliminary appointments. His kind eyes and attentive manner, a stark contrast to the clinical detachment I'd expected. "Harrison," I typed, using his first name as he'd insisted. "I know you're in Switzerland for your son's birthday, but I just landed in Atlanta after my surgery in Cleveland, having some transportation issues. Don't worry, I'll figure something out. Hope the celebration is wonderful." I sent it without expecting a response. My phone rang almost immediately. Pamela, his deep voice, with that slight Boston accent, was unmistakable. "Where exactly are you in the airport?" I blinked in confusion. "Terminal B, but..." "Stay there. I'm at Terminal C right now. Just flew in from Zurich myself." "What a coincidence. You're here in Atlanta." I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. "Indeed, I am. Edward's birthday celebration ended yesterday. I'm actually waiting for my driver now. We can easily pick you up. Do you have checked luggage?" "Just this carry-on?" I said, patting the small suitcase containing 3 weeks of hospital existence. "But Harrison, I can't impose." "Pamela?" he interrupted gently. "You've just had major cardiac surgery. The last thing you need is to struggle with ride-share apps. Text me your exact location. Samuel and I will be there in 15 minutes. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Dr. Harrison Wells, the man who had revolutionized cardiac care, was coming to pick me up at the airport like we were old friends. I checked my appearance in my compact mirror and winced. 3 weeks in the hospital had left me pale, with dark circles under my eyes. I'd lost 12 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. I applied a touch of lipstick, a small vanity that seemed suddenly important, and waited. 15 minutes later, a sleek black Bentley pulled up to the curb. The driver, an elegant older man in a crisp uniform, emerged. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Samuel. Dr. Wells sent me to assist you." Before I could respond, another figure emerged from the car. Tall, distinguished, with silver hair and those penetrating blue eyes. Harrison Wells wore a casual but impeccably tailored outfit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Pamela," he said warmly, taking my hand in both of his. "I've been wondering how the surgery went. I've been concerned." The genuine care in his voice nearly undid me after the coldness from my own family. To my horror, I felt tears threatening. Blinking them back, I summoned a smile. "It went as well as could be expected. I'm still here, aren't I?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, you are, and I'm very glad of that fact." He turned to Samuel. "Please handle Mrs. Hayes' luggage carefully. She's still recovering. As Samuel took my suitcase, Harrison offered his arm. The gesture was so unexpectedly courteous that I hesitated before placing my hand in the crook of his elbow. I don't want to be a burden, I murmured. Pamela, he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. You could never be a burden. Now, let's get you home and you can tell me why your family wasn't here to meet you. Something in his tone, a protective edge, sent an unexpected warmth through me. As Samuel held the door open, I slid into the luxurious leather interior, wondering what my son and daughter-in-law would say if they could see me now. Little did I know that in a few hours, their frantic calls would be lighting up my phone, not out of concern for my health, but because they discovered exactly who had come to my rescue when they wouldn't. The Bentley glided through Atlanta traffic, insulated from the chaos outside. You didn't answer my question, Harrison said gently as we merged onto the highway. About your family not meeting you. I smoothed an invisible wrinkle from my skirt. How could I explain without sounding pitiful? They're busy people, I finally said. Philip's a partner at Harrow & Associates. Diana's leading some important campaign at Meridian. Harrison studied me with those penetrating eyes that seemed to catch every evasion. I see, he replied, though his tone suggested he saw far more. And they couldn't spare 30 minutes to pick up their mother after cardiac surgery? Put so bluntly, it sounded even worse. I felt an irrational urge to defend them. It was last minute. I didn't give them much notice. Because you didn't know when you'd be discharged, he countered smoothly. Surely they understood that. I turned to look out the window. I didn't exactly tell them it was cardiac surgery, I admitted quietly. I said it was a minor procedure. Pamela. Just my name, but filled with gentle reproof. The experimental valve reinforcement you underwent is anything but minor. Why would you downplay something so serious? The question hung between us. The answer was tied to years of not wanting to be a burden, of making myself smaller to fit into the corners of my family's busy lives. They have their own concerns, I said finally. I didn't want to disrupt everything with my problems. Harrison shook his head slightly. Your problem was life-threatening heart failure. That's not a disruption. That's a family emergency. His directness was both refreshing and unsettling. May I ask you something personal? He continued. I nodded. Do they know who I am? Your family? The question surprised me. I mentioned consulting with you initially. Yes? Diana was quite interested, actually. I hesitated, remembering her sudden attention. She works in pharmaceutical public relations. I think your endorsement means a lot in her industry. Something shifted in his expression. Ah, and did she ask you to make an introduction? She hinted at it, I admitted, feeling uncomfortable. But I wouldn't impose on our professional relationship that way. He smiled then. Our relationship has evolved beyond purely professional. I think we've had, 7 or 8 conversations about everything from cardiac health to Italian opera. I consider you a friend, Pamela. Friend? The word warmed something long cold inside me. I consider you a friend, too, I said softly. He reached over and briefly touched my hand, a light but anchoring gesture. Your integrity is refreshing, he said. For the remainder of the drive, we discussed my procedure in detail. As we approached my modest suburban home, I felt a strange reluctance. The thought of returning to my empty house, to the silence and solitude, suddenly seemed unbearable. Would you like Samuel and me to help you get settled? Harrison asked, as if sensing my hesitation. You shouldn't be lifting anything. That's very kind, but I couldn't impose further. It's not an imposition, he interrupted firmly. In fact, I insist. Doctor's orders? Inside, I was acutely aware of how the house might appear to someone like Harrison, well-maintained, but dated. Yet he moved through my space with genuine appreciation, commenting on a watercolor Thomas and I had purchased. While Samuel disappeared to the grocery store with a list Harrison had imperiously dictated, the doctor insisted on making tea in my kitchen. I hope you don't mind, he said, finding cups and saucers with surprising ease. I find ritual comforting. The normality of watching this distinguished man, moving about my kitchen, created an intimacy that made my breath catch. When my phone began vibrating insistently on the counter, I glanced at it, then froze. 48 missed calls, 32 text messages, all from Philip and Diana. Is something wrong? Harrison asked. I'm not sure. My family suddenly seems very eager to reach me. As I unlocked the phone, a new notification appeared. A social media alert. With growing disbelief, I opened it to find a photo posted by Harrison an hour ago. Both of us in the Bentley, his hand supportively under my elbow with the caption, "Honored to assist my friend Pamela Hayes home after her courageous journey through pioneering cardiac surgery. A remarkable woman with extraordinary resilience." The post already had thousands of likes and comments, including one from Diana. "Dr. Wells, that's my mother-in-law. We've been trying to reach you for months regarding Meridian's cardio restore project." I looked up at Harrison, whose expression was impossible to read. "Did you know?" I asked quietly. "Let's just say," he replied, setting a perfectly brewed cup of tea before me, "that your daughter-in-law's reputation precedes her, and now it seems she's discovered a connection she never knew existed." His smile contained something I couldn't quite identify. Satisfaction, perhaps, or even mischief. "Pamela," he said, "I believe your phone will be quite busy for the foreseeable future. Shall we silence it and enjoy our tea?" By evening, the missed calls had doubled. I watched the number climb with detached curiosity. Harrison and Samuel had departed, leaving behind a stocked refrigerator, my medications organized, and a business card with Harrison's private number. "Call any time," he'd said at the door, his eyes holding mine. "Day or night. I mean that, Pamela." I finally decided to acknowledge the communication bombardment. The texts were telling. From Philip, "Mom, call me immediately." From Diana, "Is that really Dr. Harrison Wells with you? How do you know him?" And then, "Mom Hayes, please call. We need to talk about your connection to Dr. Wells ASAP." Not a single text asked how I was feeling. When the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, I wasn't surprised. I opened the door to find Philip and Diana on my porch, both still in their work clothes. "Mom," Philip exclaimed with manufactured concern, "we've been trying to reach you for hours." "I was resting," I replied simply, stepping aside. "Doctor's orders, after cardiac surgery." Diana's head snapped up. "Cardiac surgery? You said it was a minor procedure." "Did I?" I moved slowly to my armchair. "Well, it was minor in that I survived it." "Mom, what's really going on?" Philip asked, his brow furrowed as he took in the medical documents. "First, you downplay some surgery, then you appear on social media with Harrison Wells of all people." "I had experimental cardiac valve reinforcement surgery," I said bluntly. "There was a 40% chance I wouldn't survive it. Dr. Wells was my initial consulting physician." The disclosure hung in the air. "Why didn't you tell us it was so serious?" Diana asked, her voice modulated to convey concern. "Would it have mattered?" I countered quietly. "You were too busy to pick me up from the airport. Would knowing it was high risk have changed anything?" Philip at least had the grace to look ashamed. "Of course, it would have. We would have been there." "Ellen, would you?" I interrupted. "The way you were there for my knee replacement last year, when you visited for 15 minutes between meetings? Or the way you were there when I had pneumonia, by sending flowers rather than checking on me in person?" My son's face flushed. "That's not fair, Mom. We have demanding careers, children with activities." "Yes, careers and children that benefited greatly from my constant support," I finished for him. An uncomfortable silence fell. Diana, ever the strategist, changed tactics. "Dr. Wells seems very attentive," she observed. "You never mentioned you were such close friends." Here it was, the real reason for their visit. Not concern for my health, but access to Harrison. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. "We became acquainted during my consultations," I said simply. "Compassionate enough to pick you up from the airport personally in his Bentley." Diana pressed. "That seems beyond professional courtesy." Perhaps he simply recognized that I needed assistance when my own family did not. The words were quiet, but landed with precision. "So, Diana continued, unable to contain herself. How well do you know Dr. Wells exactly? His endorsement could transform Meridian's new cardiovascular drug program. And there it was. The naked ambition. Well, enough that he chose to help me today, I replied carefully. Beyond that, our relationship is private. Private, Philip echoed. Mom, what does that mean? I smiled slightly. It means that some things aren't for professional leveraging, Diana. Some connections have value beyond networking opportunities. Diana's perfectly composed facade cracked. But you must understand how important this could be for Meridian, for our family's financial security. I believe Dr. Wells is aware of Meridian's interest, I interrupted, thinking of our conversation. He seems quite informed about pharmaceutical industry matters. Something in my tone alerted her. Did you tell him I've been trying to contact him? He asked if my family knew who he was, I said truthfully. I mentioned you worked in pharmaceutical PR and had expressed interest in his endorsement. Diana's face paled. And what did he say? I considered the question. He seemed unsurprised. The atmosphere changed. Diana stood abruptly. We should let you rest, she announced. My son looked between us, sensing undercurrents. Right, but Mom, we really should talk more about your surgery. Before I could respond, my phone chimed with a text from Harrison, checking in on my favorite patient. Dinner tomorrow evening? I know a place that accommodates cardiac diets beautifully. Samuel can collect you at 7. I couldn't prevent a small smile. I'm afraid I have plans tomorrow evening, I told Philip, feeling a long dormant flutter of anticipation. As they left, I watched from my window as they engaged in an intense conversation in the driveway. Only after they were gone did I reread Harrison's message. Was this a doctor checking on a patient, a friend offering support, or something else entirely? Whatever it was, for the first time in years, I felt like more than just someone's mother. I felt like Pamela again. I typed my reply. I'd be delighted. 7:00 p.m. works perfectly. I stood before my bedroom mirror, assessing my reflection. The black dress I'd purchased for a law firm gala felt woefully inadequate. Was this even a date? The question had plagued me all day. The doorbell chimed precisely at 7. Samuel stood on my porch. Good evening, Mrs. Hayes. The doctor is waiting. The Bentley sat in my driveway like a visitor from another world. As Samuel opened the door, I caught sight of Harrison inside, dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit. Pamela, he said warmly as I slid in. You look absolutely lovely. Thank you, I replied, suddenly self-conscious. His eyes, that remarkable shade of blue, took in my appearance with frank appreciation. The dress is perfect. That shade of black brings out the silver in your hair beautifully. I found myself blushing like a schoolgirl. How are you feeling? He continued. Just the usual post-surgical fatigue, I assured him. And perhaps some lingering effects from yesterday's family confrontation. Harrison's expression sharpened. Ah, yes, I imagine my social media post created quite a stir. That's putting it mildly. I studied him. Was that deliberate? Posting that photo? A smile played at the corners of his mouth. Let's just say I've learned that sometimes a strategic revelation can clarify complex situations rather efficiently. You knew exactly who Diana was, didn't you? Harrison was quiet for a moment. Your daughter-in-law has something of a reputation in pharmaceutical circles, he finally said, particularly among physicians whose endorsements are actively sought. What kind of reputation? The kind that prioritizes connections over content, he replied diplomatically. Meridian's CardioRestore drug has potential, but their clinical trials have shown mixed results. What they need is more research, not more marketing. And her persistent efforts to contact you? 17 emails to my office in the past 4 months, he confirmed. 6 attempted approaches at medical conferences, all declined. Yet you never mentioned this when I told you about my family. His gaze returned to me, surprisingly gentle. I didn't want to taint your family relationships with my professional judgments. The Bentley glided to a stop before a discreet building I didn't recognize. The Claremont, Harrison explained, offering me his arm. A private dining club. I think you'll find it comfortable. Now. The interior was a study in understated luxury. The maitre d' greeted Harrison by name, leading us to a secluded corner table. Once seated, Harrison ordered for both of us with a confidence that should have felt presumptuous but didn't. To new beginnings, he said, raising a glass of non-alcoholic sparkling beverage, and unexpected connections. I touched my glass to his. May I ask you something personal? I ventured. Why did you respond to my text yesterday? You must have dozens of patients with far more serious conditions. He considered the question. Do you know what attracted me to cardiology, Pamela? The heart is remarkable, resilient yet vulnerable. In my 40 years of practice, I found that people with the strongest hearts, physically speaking, are not always those with the most meaningful lives. And those with damaged hearts often possess the greatest capacity for genuine connection. QC. And which category do I fall into? I asked. You, he replied without hesitation, are that rare case of physical vulnerability and emotional strength coexisting in perfect balance. From our first meeting, I sensed you carried others' burdens without complaint. Yet, yesterday, seeing how your family responded, let's just say professional interest evolved into personal concern. I'm not looking for pity, I said quickly. Pity? He looked genuinely surprised. Pamela, what I feel for you is the furthest thing from pity imaginable. The intensity in his eyes made me look away. I deliberately changed the subject. Tell me about your son. He launched into stories about Edward, a humanitarian architect. As he spoke, I caught glimpses of the father behind the physician, so different from my own relationship with Philip, where my support had always been expected but rarely acknowledged. You know, Harrison said, Edward asked about you when I mentioned I was meeting you for dinner. He asked about me, but he doesn't even know me. But I may have mentioned you in a few of our conversations. He says I speak about you differently than my other patients. Differently how? Harrison's phone chimed before he could answer. He frowned. Is something wrong? Possibly, he replied. It's from my office. A patient having complications. He hesitated. Pamela, I hate to cut our evening short, but you need to go, I finished. Of course, your patients need you. Samuel will see you home safely. May I call you tomorrow? Nani, good signal. I'd like that, I said. As he rose to leave, Harrison did something unexpected. He leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek. This evening meant a great deal to me, he said quietly. We'll continue our conversation very soon. After he departed, I sat momentarily stunned. Samuel appeared discreetly. Dr. Wells asked me to ensure you enjoy dessert before taking you home, Mrs. Hayes. He specifically recommended the crème brûlée. I smiled at this small, thoughtful detail. As I savored the dessert, my phone chimed. It was Diana. Just heard Dr. Wells had to leave Claremont for an emergency. Didn't know you were dining there tonight. We need to talk about your relationship with him. It's crucial for Meridian's future. Breakfast tomorrow. Tune. Done one. I set the phone down slowly. How had Diana known where I was? The evening that had felt like a magical departure from my ordinary life suddenly seemed more complicated, threaded with agendas I didn't fully understand. Diana arrived the next morning with a designer coffee carrier and a bakery box. Cranberry orange scones, she announced. Your favorite. I accepted the decaf coffee. Thank you, though I don't recall agreeing to breakfast. I thought we could use a fresh start, she said, her expression carefully composed. So, you and Dr. Wells? No preamble. I sipped my coffee. How did you know I was at the Claremont last night? She blinked. Oh, a colleague saw you there. A colleague who also knew the moment Harrison left for his emergency? Mom Hayes, she began, switching to the faux affectionate address. I'm just trying to understand your relationship with Dr. Wells, for family reasons. Family reasons, I repeated. Not Meridian reasons. The lie hung between us. What exactly do you want to know, Diana? How did you two really connect? He never gives patients that kind of personal attention. Perhaps I'm not just any patient, I replied, a hint of steel in my voice. Clearly, she agreed eagerly, which is why I'm trying to understand. Is it a friendship? A professional relationship? Something more? I thought of Harrison's kiss. My relationship with Harrison is personal, I said firmly. Not a networking opportunity. Frustration flickered across her face. Mom Hayes, you don't understand what's at stake here. Meridian's Cardio Restore drug could revolutionize heart disease treatment, but we need Wells' endorsement. Interesting, I murmured. Harrison mentioned Cardio Restore has shown mixed results in clinical trials, that it needs more research, not more marketing. Diana went very still. He discussed Meridian's products with you. Briefly, he seemed quite knowledgeable about your attempts to contact him. The color drained from her face. What exactly did he say? That you've been quite persistent. 17 emails, I believe. I watched realization dawn in her eyes. Do you have any idea what that could do to my professional reputation? She asked sharply. You mean the way you discussed me with colleagues who spied on my private dinner? I countered quietly. Diana stood abruptly. This isn't just about me. Philip's law firm handles significant portions of Meridian's legal work. Our family's financial security is tied to my success there. So that's why you're suddenly interested in my friendship with Harrison, I said. Not concern for my well-being, but fear that I might damage your professional ambitions. That's not fair, she protested weakly. I understand perfectly, I said, rising. I understand that my value to this family has always been measured by what I can provide, not who I am. My phone chimed, Harrison's distinctive tone. Diana's gaze darted toward it. You should answer that, she said, her professional smile back in place. And perhaps mention that we were just having a lovely family breakfast. The transparent attempt at damage control was sad. I glanced at the message. Good morning, Pamela. Apologies again for our interrupted evening. Patient stabilized. Would you consider accompanying me to the Symphony Gala this Saturday? Black tie affair benefiting cardiac research. A formal event, in public, as Harrison's companion. The implications made my heart flutter. Well, Diana prompted. I think our breakfast is concluded, Diana. Her expression hardened. So that's how it's going to be. You'll prioritize some new relationship over your family's needs? No, I corrected gently. I'm finally prioritizing my needs alongside my family's. It's an adjustment for all of us, I imagine. After she left, I reread Harrison's message, then typed my reply. I would be delighted to attend, though I should warn you. My presence as your companion will likely spark certain professional overtures from Meridian Pharmaceuticals. His response came almost immediately. I'm counting on it. Some situations benefit from direct confrontation in the proper setting. Besides, I'm rather looking forward to seeing you in formal attire. You were stunning in simple black. I felt a blush warm my cheeks. Another text followed. Samuel will arrange for suitable options to be delivered for your selection. The expense is handled. Consider it part of your cardiac rehabilitation program. Doctor's orders. I laughed aloud, then sobered. Saturday's gala would make whatever was developing between us publicly visible. I was stepping onto a stage I hadn't chosen. Yet despite the uncertainty, I felt more alive than I had in years. I typed, I'll accept Samuel's assistance. But, Harrison, I need to understand. Is this invitation personal or strategic? His reply made my breath catch. Both, but the personal far outweighs the strategic. The gala merely provides a convenient setting for addressing several matters simultaneously. Most importantly, the pleasure of your company. As I set the phone down, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. Cheeks flushed, eyes bright. Whatever game was being played, I was no longer merely a pawn. I was becoming a queen, and Saturday night would be my opening gambit. Too matronly, I murmured, turning away from my reflection. The navy blue gown made me look exactly what I was, a 67-year-old grandmother. Perhaps the next option, Mrs. Hayes, Samuel said patiently. When Harrison had mentioned suitable options, I hadn't envisioned an entire boutique's worth of evening wear, a professional stylist named Margot, and a makeup artist. Stepping out of the rejected navy gown, I allowed Margot to help me into the next selection, an emerald green silk that shimmered subtly. "This," Margot declared, "is the one." I turned toward the mirror and barely recognized myself. The dress wasn't revealing, but its sophisticated cut transformed my silver hair from merely aging to striking. "The color brings out your eyes," the makeup artist Inez observed. As she worked, I ventured a question to Samuel. "Has Dr. Wells ever sent you to assist other patients this way?" A barely perceptible pause. "Dr. Wells has always shown exceptional concern for his patients." That doesn't quite answer my question. This time, his hesitation was more pronounced. "Dr. Wells values his privacy." "I understand," I conceded. "But I find myself in an unusual situation. It's natural to wonder where I stand." Samuel's expression softened. "Without violating confidences, Mrs. Hayes, I can say that in 15 years of service, I have never seen the doctor take such a personal interest in a patient's well-being. Nor have I been dispatched with a styling team and specific instructions about ensuring someone feels, as he put it, as extraordinary as she truly is." The simple statement warmed me. Before I could respond, Inez declared her work complete. The woman looking back at me was still 67, but she was also undeniably elegant. "One final touch," Margot said, approaching with a velvet box. Inside lay a pair of teardrop emerald earrings. "I couldn't possibly," I began. "Dr. Wells anticipated your objection," Samuel interjected smoothly. "He asked me to assure you these are merely on loan for the evening, though he did mention they could become a gift if you found them pleasing." The thoughtful gesture touched me deeply. When the doorbell rang, I descended my modest staircase to find Harrison waiting, resplendent in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. When he turned and saw me, his expression, a mixture of appreciation and something deeper, made every minute of preparation worthwhile. "Pamela," he said softly, "you look absolutely breathtaking." "The team you sent worked minor miracles," I demurred. "No," he corrected gently. "They merely enhanced what was already there. The emeralds were the right choice. They bring out the remarkable green in your eyes." "They're beautiful," I acknowledged, though far too generous for a simple loan. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "We'll discuss their status later. For now," he offered his arm. "Shall we make our entrance?" The symphony hall gleamed. A red carpet was flanked by photographers. Flash bulbs erupted. "Dr. Wells over here. Who's your companion tonight?" Harrison guided me forward with a protective hand at the small of my back. Just before we reached the doors, he paused, positioning us for a deliberate photograph, his arm slipping around my waist in a gesture that was unmistakably more than professional. "Forgive the theatrics," he murmured, his lips close to my ear. "Sometimes a picture truly is worth 1,000 words." Inside, the grand foyer buzzed. Harrison guided me through the crowd, introducing me simply as Pamela Hayes, my guest this evening, offering no explanation. "Everyone is wondering who I am," I observed quietly. "Let them wonder," he replied, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "I'm rather enjoying watching Atlanta's society try to categorize what they're seeing between us." "And what exactly are they seeing?" Before he could answer, a voice cut in. "Dr. Wells, what an unexpected pleasure." Diana stood before us, Philip beside her, looking uncomfortable. "Dr. Wells, we had no idea you'd be attending with family," she continued smoothly. As Harrison took her hand briefly, I caught the flash of triumph in Diana's eyes. She had achieved direct contact. "Actually," Harrison replied smoothly, his hand finding the small of my back with subtle possessiveness, "I'm not here with family. I'm here with my date." The word hung in the air. "Your date?" Diana repeated, eyes darting between us. "Yes," Harrison confirmed. "Pamela and I have been getting to know each other. When I learned she was recovering from cardiac surgery, It seemed the perfect opportunity to invite her to an event benefiting heart research. Philip stared. Mom, you never mentioned you were dating Dr. Wells. There are many things I don't mention, Philip, I replied, finding unexpected confidence. Diana recovered quickly. Well, this is simply wonderful. Dr. Wells, I've been hoping for an opportunity to discuss Meridian's cardiorestore program. Mrs. Reynolds, Harrison interrupted with impeccable politeness. I make it a policy not to discuss business at charitable events. Of course, she backpedaled. Though as family now. We're not family, Mrs. Reynolds, Harrison corrected. I am enjoying a personal relationship with Pamela. That relationship does not extend to professional connections with her relatives. The brutal clarity left Diana speechless. Dr. Wells, Philip attempted. We're simply surprised. My mother has been through a serious medical procedure. Are you? Harrison asked mildly. I understood you were too busy to collect her from the airport. Fortunately, I was available. Before Philip could respond, a silver-haired woman in a stunning red gown approached. Harrison, darling, the board members are asking for you. She turned to me. And you must be Pamela. Harrison has mentioned you several times. I'm Catherine Winslow, Symphony Guild president, and Harrison's ex-wife. Ex-wife. The revelation startled me as much as it shocked Diana and Philip. Catherine took my hand. Harrison never brings dates to these functions, she confided in a stage whisper. You must be quite special. Come, both of you. The presentation is about to begin. As she led us away, I caught Diana's thunderstruck expression. Thank you for the timely rescue, Harrison murmured to Catherine. 30 years of marriage taught me to recognize your save me expression, she replied with a wink. We reached a front table. Strategically seated, I observed to Harrison. You noticed that wasn't entirely coincidental, he said. I suspected as much when you mentioned direct confrontation in the proper setting. Catherine and I have been divorced for 12 years, but remain close friends. She was quite intrigued when I mentioned meeting someone who had captured my interest. So this evening has been choreographed from the beginning. Not choreographed, he corrected. Strategically anticipated. Diana Reynolds has been attempting to manipulate a connection to me for months. Learning of your relationship created an opportunity to address that situation definitively, while simultaneously enjoying an evening with a woman whose company I've come to value greatly. And your declaration that I'm your date? I asked. His expression softened. That was entirely sincere. I'm not objecting, I clarified, merely clarifying. The smile that spread across his face was genuine and warm. In that case, he said, taking my hand under the tablecloth, allow me to formally request the pleasure of considering this our first official date, Pamela Hayes. Before I could respond, the lights dimmed, and Catherine took the stage. I left my hand in Harrison's, his thumb tracing small circles on my palm. After dinner, I excused myself to the ladies' room. Diana appeared beside me. Quite an evening you're having. Yes, I agreed simply. Mom Hayes, she began. I hope you understand the position this puts us in professionally. Diana, I said, turning to face her. Let me be very clear. My personal life is not a networking opportunity. Harrison has already established his boundaries. I suggest you respect them. Nelly. I'm just trying to navigate a delicate situation. What I understand, I replied, is that for years my value to this family has been measured by what I could provide. Now that I've developed a connection that exists entirely outside those parameters, your primary concern is how to leverage it. Color rose in her cheeks. That's unfair. Do you? I interrupted gently. When was the last time you asked about my recovery? When was the last time you visited just to see how I was feeling, rather than to discuss Harrison? Her silence was answer enough. I'm not angry, Diana. I'm just finally recognizing patterns I've enabled for too long. As I turned to leave, her voice stopped me, smaller and more genuine than I'd heard in years. He really likes you, doesn't he? It's not just, you're older, less polished, Not the type of woman you'd expect to see with someone like him, I supplied. She had the grace to look embarrassed. Yes, you did, I said, adjusting my emerald earring. And it's all right. Sometimes the most valuable things aren't obvious at first glance. I returned to the table to find Harrison in conversation with the symphony conductor. He looked up as I approached, his expression brightening. Everything all right? He murmured. Better than all right, I replied, realizing it was true. I think I'm finally learning to claim my space. The symphony's performance washed over me. When the final crescendo faded, Harrison leaned close. The reception continues in the grand atrium. There will be dancing. Would you care to join? My cardiologist cleared me for light exercise, I replied boldly. I believe a waltz qualifies. Then may I have the honor of this dance? Pamela Hayes. The grand atrium had been cleared for dancing. Harrison led me to the floor. As his arm slipped around my waist, the years fell away. Our bodies found the rhythm with surprising ease. You're quite good at this, I observed. Yes. Are you? He countered. At my age, most talents are well established rather than hidden. I disagree. I suspect you have depths you've set aside for far too long. His direct gaze made me glance away. We're attracting attention. Good, he said simply. Let them see. See what? Exactly. A distinguished cardiac surgeon, dancing with a beautiful woman who happens to be recovering from groundbreaking cardiac surgery. As we circled the floor, I caught sight of Philip and Diana. My son's expression was troubled. Diana's was a mix of calculation and disbelief. The music shifted to a slower tempo, and Harrison drew me slightly closer. And now that you've entered the game? He asked. I'm discovering I enjoy it more than I expected, I admitted. And what of your partner in this particular match? He seems exceptionally skilled, I replied playfully, though his ultimate strategy remains somewhat mysterious. Harrison chuckled. Perhaps his strategy is simply to enjoy each move for its own sake. As the dance concluded, he led me toward the terrace. The spring evening was mild. You're trembling, Harrison observed, placing his jacket around my shoulders. The garment carried his scent, inexplicably comforting. Just a slight chill, I lied. Perhaps we should call it an evening. Your recovery is still progressing. No, I said quickly. I'm fine, truly. Nevertheless, a physician knows when to end treatment before the patient experiences adverse effects. We've accomplished what we set out to do this evening. Which was? I prompted. To establish certain truths publicly, he replied. That you and I have a personal connection. That your daughter-in-law's attempts to leverage family relationships are unwelcome. And most importantly, he paused, his gaze holding mine, that a distinguished widow and a workaholic surgeon might find unexpected companionship in their so-called twilight years. If we leave now, I ventured, what happens next? Samuel drives you home, he said simply. We say goodnight with a mutual understanding that this evening was the beginning of something. And tomorrow, I call to check on my favorite cardiac patient. We continue learning about each other one conversation at a time. The simplicity of his proposed path calmed my anxieties. I'd like that, I said softly. As we turned to go inside, Philip appeared at the terrace doors. Mom, Diana, and I are leaving soon. We thought we might drive you home. The offer was transparently strategic. Before I could respond, Harrison spoke. That's thoughtful, Mr. Hayes, but unnecessary. She's my mother, Philip countered. Surely family takes precedence over whatever this is. The dismissive wave ignited something in me. Philip, I said, my voice steady and clear. Harrison is my date this evening, and he will see me home. My son stared. Mom, be reasonable. You hardly know this man. I'm 67 years old, I replied calmly. I believe I'm capable of deciding who escorts me home. But your heart is functioning quite well, thank you, both literally and figuratively. I softened my tone. I appreciate your concern, Philip, but I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of my decision. As Philip retreated in confused defeat, Harrison's hand squeezed mine gently. Pamela Hayes, he murmured. You are remarkable. Under the starlit Atlanta sky, wrapped in his jacket and my newfound assertiveness, I finally began to believe it might be true. Samuel drove in comfortable silence. Penny for your thoughts, Harrison said softly. Just processing everything that happened tonight. Any regrets? Only that I didn't stand up to Philip sooner. Family dynamics calcify over time, he said thoughtfully. Breaking established patterns requires tremendous courage. Is that what I did tonight? Break patterns? Spectacularly so. As Samuel pulled into my driveway, I noticed a light on in my living room. Someone's in my house, I said quietly. Harrison's expression shifted instantly. Samuel, wait here. Call security if we're not out in 5 minutes. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of movement. As we reached the porch, the door opened, revealing my 17-year-old granddaughter, Lily. Grandma, she exclaimed. Oh my God, you look amazing. Is this your doctor, the one Dad and Mom are freaking out about? Relief flooded me. Lily, what are you doing here? She glanced between us. Mom texted that you were at some fancy gala. I wanted to see for myself. Her gaze appraised Harrison. Wow, good choice, Grandma. I laughed. Lily, this is Dr. Harrison Wells. Harrison, my granddaughter, Lily. A pleasure to meet you, Lily, he said formally. So, you guys are like, dating? Lily asked bluntly. We're getting to know each other, I replied carefully. She flopped onto the sofa. That's code for dating, Grandma. It's cool. You deserve someone nice after being alone forever. How did you get here, Lily? And do your parents know where you are? She shrugged. I Ubered. And no. They've been texting me crazy stuff all night about you. I got worried they were being weird and controlling like usual. Weird and controlling, Harrison echoed. Yeah, you know, like how they never visited Grandma in the hospital, but now they're suddenly super interested in her welfare, she made air quotes, because she knows someone important. I'm 17, not stupid. I can recognize hypocrisy. One. Harrison's eyes held a glint of admiration. Perhaps Samuel could drive you home when you're ready, he said. Much safer. Lily's eyes widened. You have a driver? Like an actual chauffeur? That's actually pretty cool. But before I go, can I ask you something, Dr. Wells? Of course. Are you serious about my grandma? Because she's been lonely for, like, forever. And if you're just being nice because of her heart thing or whatever weird business stuff Mom is trying to do, that would really suck. The directness left me speechless. Harrison, however, didn't hesitate. I'm entirely serious about my interest in your grandmother. Our connection has nothing to do with her heart thing, as you put it, nor with your mother's professional ambitions. Lily studied him. Okay, but just so you know, if you hurt her, I know people who can hack your medical files and give you a fake diagnosis of something embarrassing. Lily? I gasped. Harrison chuckled. A creative threat. Fortunately, I have no intention of giving you cause to implement it. He rose. Pamela, may I have a word in private? We stepped onto the front porch. Your granddaughter is remarkable, Harrison observed. She's always been her own person, I agreed. She clearly adores you and shares my concern about your long-standing loneliness. The simple acknowledgement made my throat tighten. Harrison, about tonight. It was just the beginning, Pamela, he interrupted gently. If you'll allow it to be. In the soft porch light, his face held just openness, warmth, and hope. I'd like that, I said, softly. But my family situation is complicated. They don't need to accept it, he replied. They only need to respect it. And you? A realization struck me. You knew, didn't you? You orchestrated tonight deliberately. Harrison didn't deny it. I recognized patterns that concerned me. When these patterns intersected, I saw an opportunity to address both simultaneously. Mikau, Adinine, by using me as a chess piece. No, he corrected firmly. By offering you the chance to reclaim your position on the board as a queen. The choice to accept was entirely yours. Before I could respond, Lily emerged. Your driver is super nice, Dr. Wells. He offered to stop for ice cream. As he escorted Lily to the Bentley, I watched from the porch. When he returned, he stood at the bottom of the steps. I should go, he said, though he sounded reluctant. Yes, I agreed equally reluctantly. He ascended 2 steps. May I call you tomorrow? I'd like that. Another step. And perhaps dinner later this week? That sounds lovely. His hand reached up to gently touch my cheek. Pamela Hayes, you have thoroughly captivated me. Then, with exquisite gentleness, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to mine. A kiss so tender and respectful, yet unmistakably romantic, that it took my breath away. When he drew back, his eyes searched mine. I placed my hand over his, where it still rested against my cheek. Good night, Harrison, I whispered. The first of many, I hope, he replied. As the Bentley disappeared, I remained on the porch, fingers lightly touching my lips. At 67, with a surgically reinforced heart, I had somehow stumbled into a second chance. The question now was whether I had the courage to embrace it fully and weather the family storm that would inevitably follow. 3 weeks after the gala, I sat in my garden. My phone chimed with a text from Diana requesting a family dinner. We need to discuss recent developments as a family. I smiled. In the week since the symphony, my relationship with Harrison had evolved. Quiet dinners, long conversations, a Sunday drive to the mountains where he'd held my hand. 2 nights ago, our goodnight kiss had lingered. Is this too fast? He'd whispered. No, I'd replied. It's exactly right. Now, facing Diana's summons, I felt oddly calm. They were staging an intervention about Harrison. I dressed carefully in a sleek teal pantsuit Harrison had admired. Lily opened the door. Grandma, you look amazing. Where's Tyler? Sleepover, she replied, rolling her eyes. They didn't want him here for the serious family discussion. Diana appeared. Pamela, you're right on time. We're having drinks on the patio. The formal use of my first name signaled the evening's intent. Philip stood at the outdoor bar. Mom, you look well. Very youthful. Thank you. Happiness agrees with me, apparently. An uncomfortable silence followed. Mom, Philip began, we wanted to talk with you about recent developments. You mean Harrison? I stated directly. Yes, we're concerned about how quickly this relationship is progressing. That's exactly our point, Diana interjected. It's all happening so fast, right after your surgery, when you're emotionally vulnerable. We're worried he might be taking advantage. Lily made a disgusted sound. Oh my God, Mom. Grandma's not some confused old lady being scammed. Lily, the adults are talking, Diana replied sharply. No, I said firmly. Lily stays. She's demonstrated more insight into my well-being than either of you lately. Philip looked wounded. Mom, that's not fair. We've always had your best interests at heart. Have you? I asked quietly. When you couldn't spare 30 minutes to pick me up from the airport. When you visited me exactly twice in the past month, both times to discuss Harrison. We've been busy with work commitments. As you've been for years, I interrupted gently, while I rearranged my life repeatedly to accommodate your needs, but never expecting the same consideration. The blunt assessment hung in the air. Diana shifted strategies. Pamela, we value everything you've done. We just don't want to see you hurt by someone who might have complex motivations. You mean someone who might be using me to avoid professional entanglements with Meridian Pharmaceuticals? I asked mildly. Diana flushed. That's not. It's exactly what you're implying, I continued. Because you can't imagine Harrison being genuinely interested in me for myself. You assume he must have ulterior motives. Philip set his drink down. Mom, be reasonable. He's a world-famous physician. I'm what, Philip? I asked. Old? Unaccomplished? Unworthy of genuine interest? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. It implied in every concerned comment. Lily moved to sit beside me. Grandma has been alone since Grandpa died, Why can't you just be happy she found someone nice? Diana's expression softened slightly. Lily, adult relationships are complicated. Sometimes people have agendas. Like trying to use your mother-in-law's new boyfriend for business connections? Lily countered bluntly. Lily! Diana gasped. What? It's true. I heard you telling Dad that if Grandma would just leverage her relationship properly, it could open doors at Meridian. Lily's air quotes were perfect. Philip looked mortified. I felt a curious calm. Philip, Diana, I understand your concerns, but my relationship with Harrison is not subject to family approval or strategic planning. It's private, it's genuine, and it's bringing me joy, But Mom, I'm not finished, I continued firmly. For decades, I've structured my life around supporting this family. That pattern stops now. Diana's composure cracked. What exactly does that mean? It means I'm reclaiming my autonomy, my time, my choices, including my choice to pursue a relationship with Harrison, without justification or apology. And if we're concerned about that choice, Philip asked, you're entitled to your concerns. You're not entitled to manage my life based on them. I softened my tone. I will always love you both. You're my family, but love doesn't require submission to control disguised as concern. The silence that followed was weighty. Finally, Philip spoke, his voice strained. We just don't want to lose you, Mom. The vulnerability touched me. Oh, Philip, you're not losing me. You're just meeting a version of me you haven't had to deal with before. The version that stands up for herself, Lily supplied helpfully. Precisely. I reached for Philip's hand. I've spent 18 years defining myself as Thomas's widow, your mother, the children's grandmother. I'm discovering there's more to me than those roles. Something seemed to reach Diana. I never really considered how lonely you must have been, she admitted quietly. I buried it beneath busyness, I acknowledged. Being needed gave purpose to my days, but Harrison has reminded me that I'm not just a supporting character. I deserve a narrative of my own. And Dr. Wells is part of that narrative now? Diana asked. Yes, I stated simply, though not in the way that might benefit Meridian. Diana had the grace to look embarrassed. My phone chimed, Harrison's distinctive tone. Thinking of you this evening. Call when you're free. A smile touched my lips. Him? Philip asked. Yes. Lily broke the tension. So, are we actually having dinner? Or was this just scheduled for the intervention? Because I'm starving. As we moved inside, Philip hung back. Mom, I need to ask, are you happy? Really happy? The question deserved complete honesty. Yes, I said simply. For the first time since your father died, I remember what it feels like to be fully alive. His expression settled on something resembling acceptance. Then I guess I need to get used to having Dr. Harrison Wells at family dinners. That would be nice, I replied, though not required. Harrison and I are creating our own path. Later, as Samuel drove me home, I called Harrison. How was the family dinner? He asked. Illuminating. They staged a concerned intervention about us. He chuckled. And how did that go for them? Not as planned, though I think we reached a new understanding. I'm proud of you, he said softly. Surprisingly, it was easier than expected. Once I became clear about my own worth, the rest followed naturally. Your worth has never been in question, he replied. At least not to me. As Samuel pulled into my driveway, I noticed a warm glow from my porch. Dozens of candles creating a pathway to my door, where a tall figure waited. Harrison, I gasped into the phone. Are you at my house? I may have prepared a small surprise. I thought you might need something special after facing the family tribunal. Samuel opened my door with a conspiratorial smile. Dr. Wells arranged everything while you were out, Mrs. Hayes. I approached my transformed porch in wonder. What is all this? A celebration, he replied, taking both my hands in his. Of courage, of new beginnings, of a remarkable woman who is finally claiming her rightful place in her own life story. As he drew me into an embrace that felt like coming home to a place I'd never been before, I realized that my surgical journey had healed far more than just my physical heart. It had cracked open decades of careful containment, allowing me to step into a life richer and more authentic than I'd believed possible. At 67, the diagnosis that had terrified me had become, unexpectedly, the prescription for my rebirth.